Netflix's show Live to 100, The Secrets of Blue Zones, navigates the lifestyles and dietary habits of individuals living in blue zones, regions known for a high number of centenarians or supercentenarians. The show delves into the dietary practices and lifestyle choices that seemingly contribute to the longevity of individuals in these zones. Or does it? When you watch the show, you see how longevity is a way of life. People in blue zones move a lot. They have close relationships with others in the community. They take care of the elderly rather than having the government tackle that responsibility, which is all good and valuable contributing factors to living a long and healthy life. But when the show's creator and host, Dan Buettner, highlights the dietary practices of living in blue zones, he outright omits a large portion of many of their diets, namely eating meat. After each episode, you inevitably come to the conclusion that eating a vegetarian, vegan, or plant-based diet increases your chances of living longer, and it seems to do this on purpose. At the end of every episode, the host concludes that eating a plant-based diet is a contributing factor to longevity, along with other very healthy ways of life. One of the regions the show highlights, however, got me especially curious: Sardinia. Having been to Italy many times over the years to travel, to enjoy the culture, food, and to visit family living there, I was perplexed when the host of the show visits a small town in Sardinia which has an extraordinary amount of centenarians. The host shows the sheep herders in the region, yet shows no consumption of lamb or meat at all. If you herd sheep, you eat lamb. They're not just there to get you outside. It's a staple of your diet, which got me thinking, what other blue zones did the show and the author outright lie about? Unveiling the facts. Blue zones identified in regions such as Okinawa, Japan, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, Icaria, Greece, and Loma Linda, California, USA, are extensively studied for their dietary patterns. It is important to note that these patterns are not uniformly vegetarian or vegan, contrary to what some might deduce from the show. So let's start with Sardinia, Italy. In Sardinia, a significant intake of lean meat, particularly from locally raised animals, i.e. the sheep that the herders are herding, is an integral part of the diet. A study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition observed that traditional dietary practices in Sardinian centenarians finding a considerable consumption of animal products. The audacity of removing meat consumption from the diet of Sardinian centenarians was especially shocking, especially when the viewer can see men herding sheep and tending to livestock. Yet meat consumption is barely mentioned, if at all. Why is that? I can only conclude that it's confirmation bias or the host's desire to prove a point and alter reality to fit that point he wants to prove, that a plant-based diet is what leads to longevity. But it isn't, if he's judging by the centenarians in these regions. Let's continue. Number 2 is Okinawa, Japan. The diet in Okinawa is recognized for its rich variety, which I think is important. While it includes a variety of plants as a staple of the diet, it does include fish and pork. Research highlighted in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition reveals that moderate meat consumption of fish and occasional pork, rich in proteins and essential fatty acids, has been a part of the traditional Okinawan diet. Anyone visiting Okinawa would see this meat and fish consumption, so to omit it seems odd. Number 3 is Nicoya, Costa Rica, where again you see men herding cattle on horseback as a part of their daily way of life. Similarly, in Nicoya, the diet is not strictly plant-based, obviously. This is the second place that confused me. Having been to Costa Rica a couple times, their love of fish and barbecue made me scratch my head as to why it wouldn't be included in the show, especially when you can literally see these barbecue pits in these villages, yet no mention of meat as a staple of their diet is highlighted. Residents in Nicoya consume meat, predominantly chicken and pork, as per a study that we don't really need to go into, but it's in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. You can see them herding cattle. You can see the barbecue pits, yet they omit the meat. Let's go on to number 4, which is Icaria, Greece. The dietary patterns in Icaria incorporate a range of food items including fish and goat meat. The Journal of Aging Research outlines that the intake of animal protein coupled with the high plant-based foods characterizes the dietary habits in this region. Exploring balanced diets. We live in a society of tribes. That is, the vegan or plant-based tribe hates the meat tribe and does all it can to prove it's unhealthy. The meat tribe does the same to the plant-based tribe. We have conservatives who hate liberals, liberals who hate conservatives. We're inundated with a tribal mindset that removes our ability to find truth. Well, the truth is that yes, plants are important to eat, but so are animals. Animals provide nutrients that plants cannot, including nutrients vital to longevity and health, like vitamin B12, iron, taurine, creatine, carnitine, and carnosine, among others, including proteins. Animals are a rich source of healthy fatty acids and proteins that promote cognitive health and muscular health. Animal proteins, dairy, and eggs are also where we get choline, which is vital for long-term cognitive health as studies show. In short, the host of the show could have highlighted the value of a balanced diet, the necessity to include plants in one's diet, but also include meats, but instead chose to remain tribal, to ignore facts, and to push an agenda. I can't see this any other way. Why remove any mention of a portion of a diet that could contribute to long-term health unless you have some point to prove? This does a disservice to the millions who have watched the show, who are now considering moving to a solely plant-based diet and removing their access to the nutrients mentioned previously that are primarily found in animals. Quite frankly, it pisses me off. What should have been covered is the diversity in diet that is a common thread across blue zones, combining plant-based foods with meat and fish, which could be a contributing factor to longevity and seems to be a contributing factor based on research. The nutritional balance attained by consuming a varied diet rich in essential nutrients from both plant and animal sources possibly plays a vital role in promoting a healthy, long life. The lifestyles of these centenarians in these blue zones are incredibly important as well, which is highlighted wonderfully in the show. If you're looking for a way of life that will lead to a longer, happier life, the show does a great job of this. However, it doesn't just miss the mark on diet. It seems to actively omit important aspects of dietary practices in blue zones, and it seems to do so in an underhanded, purposeful manner, trying to push a viewpoint rather than looking at facts. If you want to know how to eat, forget fad diets. Restrictive diets aren't the way to go that eliminate entire food groups. Plants, roots, vegetables, fruits, and yes, fish and animals each play an important role in health, performance, and longevity. Now, if you want to follow a balanced diet, there is a lot of information out there. You don't have to get it from this, but I have a book called The Man Diet, and we just go into dietary practices and how you should eat a balanced diet that is rich in animal proteins and fats, fruits, vegetables, and other plants. So I'll put a link down below to The Man Diet. But again, there's tons of information out there on how to eat a balanced diet, but this show simply misses the mark as to what is actually consumed and what the dietary practices are in the blue zones, which I think does a disservice to all of the people watching and looking for information about how to live a longer, healthier, happier life. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Take care.